Hey, Reb here. Rebecca. Just not Becky. Today I wanted to talk about begonias again. I know I just did a begonia tour very recently, but I wanted to talk a little bit more in depth about begonias. My begonia collection has changed a little bit since the last one, and I also wanted to talk about begonia propagation a little and how to have a little more fun with your begonias, because begonias are fun. It's like begonia party, and how to be a begonia botanist. And also a lot of my begonias are blooming right now, so I thought I'd show that off too. Yeah, so let's do that. One of my favorite things about having plants is experimenting with them and having fun with them. It's not just, about them always looking perfectly pretty and watering them and repotting them and buying more and more and more. It's, pretending to be a botanist and doing experiments. So that's what I love to do. So I decided I wanted to learn about propagating begonias because I had never done that before. And I've fallen in love with begonias. I was terrified of begonias for the longest time. I had a friend who wanted to give me begonia cuttings all the time, and I would refuse. We were just talking about this yesterday, and she laughed at me because now I'm like, oh, you got any begonias? Jonesing for begonias. And now I love them. I was so scared. I got one, and I was like, oh, this is a breeze. And I got another one. I'm like, yeah, I think now it's time to try a rhizomagus. Oh my God. One with a rhizome. I'm not a botanist. I just pretend to be a begonia botanist. Anyway, they're not that scary at all. Like, I'm having really a lot of fun with them. But I'm not an expert. So if you want real expert advice on begonias, go to Rachel from Heart Shaped Leaves or go to Betsy Begonia, my girl Betsy, and they can tell you everything you really need to know. But I can tell you how to have fun and experiment with them. So let's do that. So let's talk about propagation because I'm having fun with them. I decided there was this one begonia I really wanted, and I took a leaf of this begonia, and it's called, I didn't even know what it was, but I found out it's called a Begonia racinifolia or a Begonia immense. And I took one leaf, and I had this little, it's like a self-watering planter, but it's like a terrarium, and I found it on clearance at the end of the season last year. This is the base of it, and then it has this top. It has a little vent on the top, so you can vent it, but I left it all the way closed. I put moss in it, and I put the one leaf, like the stem was about this long, so I put it in halfway, and then stuck it straight up. And I put the lid on it, and I left it just sitting on a bright shelf. And I left it there, and it sat there for, well, about a week and a half in, I could already tug on it and it didn't want to come. So it like rooted in there fast. And then it sat there and it sat there and it sat there. And I knew nothing. I didn't research this or anything. I just was like, let's just see what happens. So it sat there and sat there and sat there. And I don't know. I didn't log it. I think now I know I want to start logging things instead of just doing things willy-nilly like I usually do, doing them Rebecca-ly. If you hadn't heard, my name's an adverb. My middle name's Lee, so I do things Rebecca-ly. Anyway, it felt like forever, but I think it was probably about 6 weeks or so, and all of a sudden, a little leaf popped up. I was so excited. And then another one, and then another one. And pretty soon, there were like 4 little leaves. And I'm like, holy crap, now what do I do? I didn't want to wreck it. I was so excited. I had a little plant. So what did I do? I actually asked Rachel from Heart Shaped Leaves, what do I do now? How do I put it in soil? And she said, you just put it in your regular mix that you put your rest of them in. And that is like a good amount of perlite and some soil. So I use not quite half and half, but I not also 2/3 and a third. It's more than a third, but it's not half perlite. So there you go. And don't drown it. So I'm like, okay. So I took it out and I got some of the moss off as much as I could, and I put it in a little pot, and I treat it like all my house plants. I let it dry out almost all the way, and then I soak it. And within 2 months, I now have this. Look at how big it is. This is a 4-inch terracotta. It's amazing. So this, let's show you a good leaf. Okay, so this is the front of what these begonias look like. And the back of the leaves have that red hairy back of the leaves, and they have a red hairy outline. And then the stem is why I fell in love. It's super, super hairy. And it's neat because the first little layer of leaves that came out are not the normal shape of the plant. They're like these little round things. Sort of like when you start seeds and the first leaves aren't the regular leaves. They're like those, what they're called, you know, the first leaves. It's like the sheath leaves, and then they turn into the regular leaves. It's like that happened. I didn't know that would happen. Like I said, I didn't do any research. I just started shoving a leaf into some moss and saw what happened. It was an experiment. But this is what happened. So since then, I decided, okay, let's do some more experimenting, because this was amazing and so easy. So once it started getting some more leaves, I took 2 more. So all I did was take a leaf, and then I'm just going to use the big one for an example because I can show you better. Okay, so I took a cutting of the leaf pretty far down, and then I took the leaf, and if the stem's this long, I put about this much down into moss and just stuck it in there. Then I took the second one and I stuck it in water, about the same distance down. And so I wanted to see if water propagation or moss propagation would be faster. Now this time I didn't put it in a terrarium. I just put it in a little cup pot of moss in the open air, and I wanted to see what would happen. Well, the one in the glass made roots slowly, but made roots. The one in the cup of moss pretty quickly, again, like within a week, week and a half, I could tug on it and it was wanting to stay there, so it had roots. Waited, and the one in water, the roots slowly grew, but very slowly. Then before long, again, I didn't take a log, so I can't give you exact dates. All of a sudden, a little leaf popped out again. In that time, the one in water had made roots about this long, real straggly little roots, but not even close to a leaf. Then by the time another leaf popped out, still the one in water just had those same straggly roots. They kind of got to about this long, and then nothing more happened. So in my experience, whether it was in a terrarium or even in open air, just in moss, the moss like blew water out of the way. Blew water out of the water. So I ended up taking the one in the water out and popping it in moss, and then I put that in my little greenhouse out on my balcony. There you have it. So that was that experiment. Now I'm going to show you what else I'm drying with different leaves. This is my favorite way right now because I think it's beautiful. This is my little greenhouse that looks like a little box of jewels. I will open it up and show you. It's just from Amazon. Don't ask me to find you a link because I'm not going to search that long. You can find it, just search little small glass tabletop greenhouse. And doesn't it look like just a little jewel box treasure? So again, it's just a bed of moss The leaves are stuck about the stem about halfway down in. And they're all sorts of different begonia leaves. 4 of those are from Pam, from Pammy's Planty Things. And the rest are from my current begonias. And then the moss is just damp. And then this is, I'm sure it's not airtight, but close to it. So it's just keeping some nice humidity. I have gone in and just misted the moss a couple of times to make sure that it's still nice and moist, and then it's getting nice bright light. They're all definitely rooted in, but there are not any new leaves poking up yet. But in the meantime, it just looks so pretty. Wouldn't this be just a beautiful centerpiece on a table for like a fancy dinner party? Because you know I have a lot of fancy dinner parties with all of my fancy friends at my very fancy place. And then I'm doing another experiment, and this one I'm not expecting a lot of good results because I think that it's going to be too much moisture, but I just thought, let's check this one too. I'm doing all sorts of different things because it's fun to experiment and pretend you're a botanist, because who knows, maybe you'll stumble on something that works really, really, really well, right? So I'm trying the cookie jar technique. Now, look at how wet it is in there. Now the moss isn't wet, but there's a lot of condensation. So, okay. I am thinking that it's going to be too wet and that the leaves are just going to melt away. But so far it hasn't happened. I'm doing another one of the racinifolia leaves. I'm doing some big leaf. I forget who gave it to me. I don't know. None of these. There's 2 others. There's 3 kinds in here. Oh. Let's see. The one is really big and floppy and it always wants to fall over. I have it resting on a couple of pieces of bamboo. So they're all just stuck in there. And I keep it closed so it's like 100,000,000% in there. I know, there's nothing more than 100%. It's definitely 100% humidity in there. So that has only been going for a couple of weeks. The leaves aren't melting away yet. They're all still nice and firm, but you can tell they are like very damp. So it's like a rainforest in there, like literally, because I mean it's raining in there. You know, it goes up and then it runs down the side like a little ecosystem. So that might be too wet, but we will see what happens. Maybe not. Maybe it'll love it. That's what I love about this. Okay, I also have a couple of propagations, a bunch of propagations that you'll see because I'm going to show you all my begonias and how I keep them. And they're just a couple of 6-inch pots with a whole bunch of leaves stuck in them, just sitting open air, but right by my humidifier. So we're going to see how fast those go. But I will show you those when I show you where all my begonias are and how I care for them. There's also one more successful propagation over there. So, okay, most of my begonia collection sits on my plant shelf in my east-facing window, which also has these little strip lights attached to each shelf. And it sits right next to my humidifier, which shoots right onto this shelf and then flows down a little bit onto that shelf at the one begonia that's down there. I have it so that almost all of the humidity lands directly onto my Milano Bellata, which was given to me by my beautiful rainbow husband, Adam, not Dude, who, by the way, did I mention? Hold on, look. I got my hat today. Now, you know he touched this when he packaged it, which means I'm never taking it off. You know, you can get it if you go to his website. And he'll have touched it too. But mine was touched with love. And by the way, your dreams can come true, just like mine have come true. All you need to do is, number one, believe. And number two, make a vision board. Because without a vision board and setting goals, you can't get to the point where it says something like this: thanks for being such a supportive wife. And then there's a heart, which means love. So I'm just going to read it like that. Love, Adam. I think maybe it's time to take another look at my vision board. Let's do that. Back to my begonias. Oh, I can't get my glasses on. Okay, hold on. All right, let me show you the propagations I have going on first. So back here is what I was saying, that I have a couple of just clear 6-inch pots where I have various begonia leaves and stems in the moss, but sitting in sphagnum. So we're going to see how it works when they're just sitting in bright light with a humidifier on them. Now, let's take a look at how everything's growing. My Maculata whitey is blooming and just growing taller and taller. Just this weekend I had to take my shelves apart and drop all of the shelves down so they could be, I'd have more room because everything was growing out of them. And then this beauty just put on another 2 leaves. It's so fuzzy, I love it. This one was from Steve's Leaves. The leaves are really thick and they feel like a mix of velvet and cardboard. It's the weirdest feeling. And then this gorgeous one is called Tiger Paw Eyelash Begonia. The color is so stunning, and it has tons of little tiny baby leaves coming in. They're so fuzzy too. Look at the little babies. This is my other successful leaf propagation. Now this one I started in water, and it was one of the ones that just grew roots and roots and roots, but it would never grow any leaves. So I finally just put it in sphagnum and I set it in the greenhouse out on the balcony. And now, look. I love it. Another good look at my Milano Ballata. It's the coolest begonia ever. And it's doing great. I think most people keep that locked away in a terrarium, but it seems to be doing fantastic as long as that humidifier is just landing on it. You can focus on it. It won't hurt. Oh, oh, oh. And it has a couple of new, hold on, we're clicking on everything here. Looks like it's got some new stems coming in. I'm excited about that. This beautiful begonia is blooming. That's the Begonia Penny Lane. It's like Penny Lane, but it's L-A-H-N. Those blossoms are so pretty. I'm like so far away from this leaning in, but and then back here, this massive begonia is Steve Leaves' Yellow Jacket. I have to try to get closer to it for you because it's so pretty. The leaves on this are so big. And the blossoms are so cute. And it's been blooming and blooming and blooming. More and more keep coming. And then this was my first begonia that I tried because I had heard that cane begonias were so easy, so I thought I'd try that first. This thing was tiny when I got it. This was one little stem, and it doesn't stop growing. And it is blooming now too. Oh, come on. Oh, knocking a bunch of them over. So pretty. And I have a couple more begonias in here. This is my kitchen plant shelf. And I have more strip lights on each shelf here. And this window faces west, but there's a house right there, so it doesn't get any real good light. So then I have this little begonia here. Don't know the name, but it's got these beautiful metallic leaves. And then these two back here, and they are both blooming. And they are both kind of metallic too. And this one with all of these amazing colors. And that super hot pink blossom. And these, I think, are more like the Rex begonias. But all I do for my care of my begonias is let them dry out pretty much completely. These three end up getting bone dry all the time because I forget about them, and they've never dropped any leaves or had any crispy edges to speak of. So they just dry out and then I soak them. The only begonias that I treat any different are my Milano Ballata, which is in this little, I just put it in this little self-watering pot, which I guess is actually an African violet pot. It has like water in the bottom and then it's porous, and we'll see how it does. I finally just repotted it. I've only had it for about 6 weeks. And they said to wait at least a month to repot it. So I just did that because that one likes to stay really moist since it's a terrarium begonia. So I just repotted that and I decided I would put it in that. So that one I keep really moist. But all of my others, all of my others I let dry out and then I water, and I don't have any crispy edges on any of these begonias. They've all at some point been bone dry. So, and the only thing is that they have the humidifier hitting them, and it is hitting directly on a lot of them. The only one I don't let it hit directly on is this one because it has those fuzzy leaves, and I figure that's probably not great for that type of leaf. So there you have it. That is my begonia collection and how I care for them. Did I show you those blooms? I think I did. And how I propagate. All right, So I hope that you have enjoyed this little bit about my begonias, how I care for them, and how I propagate them and play with them. And I hope it encourages you to dive in and try a begonia if you haven't yet. And if you do have them, to play around with them a little bit and try new things and try to make new ones out of yours, or share some of your begonias by making new ones, or trading begonia leaves and propagating your friends' begonias and doing it that way instead of just trading whole plants. So Albert and I hope you have a fantastic day. Please remember to be kind to each other and to wear a mask. Oh, for Pete's sake, wear a mask. And hold your breath around people. All right.